listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifestor Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour and let us help you experience a higher vibration and a new state of mind. For those of you who are not familiar with me, I awakened with real live wolves. When I met a wolf, it talked to me the same way that people talk, and they taught me how to read the energy of the heart. I can intuitively hear plants, animals, and people, and I became an intuitive healer and a writer as a result. You can find me at onetrueself.com. Now, let me tell you about today's guest, Sydney Campos, and we're so glad to have you, Sydney. Sydney is an intuitive energy healer, strategic advisor, 3X founder, and facilitator with over a decade of expertise guiding visionaries, leaders, and creatives on transformation embodiment journeys. As the best-selling author of The Empath Experience, What to Do When You Feel Everything, and I'm Ascending, Now What? Sydney has empowered thousands globally in authenticity, energy mastery, and purpose. Since 2012, she supported hundreds of visionary leaders through mentorship and courses, initiated 100 plus intuitive facilitators through Soul Source training, and curated over 20 plus life-changing retreats and events worldwide. Her work catalyzes profound journeys in embodiment, visionary leadership, holistic well-being, and spiritual expansion. As an entrepreneur, Sydney has raised over $1 million for various ventures, including a new social media template featured in Forbes and the 2019 Visionary Leaders Convergence Odyssey. Sydney's offerings inspire co-creators to reconnect with their true self, unlock their potential, and cultivate deep purpose and fulfillment. Her work is featured in Forbes, Mind, Body, Green, Refinery 29, New York Magazine, Bustle, Pure Wow, and more. So welcome, Sydney. I'm so glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Julia. And Julia is my middle name. That's really fun.
Oh, that is fun. So I wanted to start with, because on your website you have a lot about heaven and earth. What's your concept of heaven and earth?
Well, I wonder if you relate to this, but that term came to me years ago, and I think it came to me at a time before I was really able to understand it. Maybe it's like the understanding has deepened over the years and changed. And so today I relate to that term as a feeling, and that it is a state of presence where we access heaven on earth, and really it is a union of our true self in the present moment.
Of many of us at one time
Yeah.
in that state, the beauty of that, the transfiguration of it, and what it would be like if everyone were like that at one time. Personally, I think the whole world would change and go up a level if we could even just hit it for a few minutes.
I used to think it meant, earlier on when I first heard the term, I used to think it was all about creating outside of myself, like, oh, I want to create heaven on earth and create the companies and help create the businesses and the offerings that help to transform and heal and awaken. And it was really more of this external, building, like action. And I've come to find it's really a way of being and a way of cultivating oneself to be more peaceful and calm, and that
Connected to the one.
Exactly, yeah, and anything that we create then from that space ultimately becomes a conduit for that frequency and helps attune other people to more presence.
Right, and it opens up creativity. So whatever we create will probably work. I can give you an example of that. We had a hurricane that came in not far from Savannah, where I grew up, and
Mm.
on the Georgia side, nothing happened. On the South Carolina side, I have a cousin who got everyone with big equipment to pull all the trees off. He got a group of people and they got generators and cooked food for everyone. He had the lieutenant governor and the governor come. They came up with bills for farmers. They drove somewhere else and got water for everyone. And he got retired people to cook food for people in retirement homes that didn't have any food. He opened up a restaurant. Now, he did not have a generator or power or hot water during all of this, but he did all that in 10 days. So that's an example of where it comes in through us.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah, we have infinite resource when we're connected to source. I really feel like heaven on earth, that term is about, how can my body, my being be the conduit for something greater, for source to move through me?
Right. So, I mean, he's a state rep, but he's not interested in doing anything other than his little area. But he said, I loved all those people, and that's what gave me enough energy to do it.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, I mean, we get this way of being compelled or being motivated of doing things that we wouldn't normally do.
Mm. And we have the infinite energy and resource. It's like all provided when we're operating from that awareness.
And people want to help us.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a different part of it too.
Mm.
So, I was going to ask you your definition of ascension. I mean, I see it as an ongoing evolution of awakening, but I'm certainly curious about your thoughts.
I love that definition. I agree. I would say, yeah, for me, it's a spiral of really, I'd like the term embodied ascension, kind of as a play on maybe more historical, reference of the term where ascension implied ascending out of the body as spirit, right? Like leaving this plane, leaving physicality, ascending. And what I found is actually at this point in our evolution, it's about embodied ascension and really coming into the body, allowing our full consciousness, soul presence to come into the cells to really stabilize in these high frequencies in the physical. And so we're almost like ascending in an internal way. And the deeper that we go inside of ourselves and really imbue our form with this high frequency, it's actually the farther we have to access outside of ourselves, the more different multidimensional experiences we can access, the deeper we
Because the body and the emotions are always talking to us.
Yeah, that's one way of looking at it for sure. I mean, I think we're here to be integrated, right? So to be really integrated across all of the different planes of our awareness and capacities and with our emotions and our energetic awareness and everything, and to orient in presence and to really not be disassociated. A lot of, I think some of my earlier spiritual experiences were quite disassociative, and I even look around today and see a lot of people teaching in a way that is quite disassociative and not about, being in the body and feeling the shadow and feeling the
Oh,
different
feeling your upper chakras.
exactly. Yeah, we got to have the whole system online.
Right. It just sort of avoids that part of it. I know because I spent so much time with wolves that it's awakening can be very, very physical.
Yeah, it's meant to be. How did you meet the wolves?
I dreamed that I met them, and then like the next full, that was near the full moon. Then when I dreamed of a white spirit wolf, then the next full moon, I was married then, and my ex-husband said he had a friend with two wolves. Would I like to go over and meet them? So I did, and it's like I've always been afraid of wolves, and I had to get in the pen with them and touch them, and they were still like pretty wild. They hadn't been handled much, but it just did not matter. I was so called. Then,
Wow.
2 or 3 weeks later, a lady took them who raised wolves, and I wanted to say goodbye to them, and I started crying, and she said that I could come with her to her house, and she had like I don't know, maybe 10 more wolves, hybrid wolves. And so then
Wow.
I started going over there because they started telling me things about her immediately that it's
Mm.
just no way I could have ever have known it.
Incredible. Wow, what a beautiful initiative. initiation, sounds like.
Yeah, it was just like this whole big brain pattern of intuition was immediately turned on.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
Mhm.
one of those flash things, but then I had to work really hard after I went through that experience to understand what it really meant and how to teach what I knew to other people.
Mm.
And then to learn to keep my mouth shut about some of the intuitions because the wolves wanted me to say everything and they made me, I think, quite sharp about it. I had to learn to get quieter about it and hint at things as opposed to always saying them directly.
Wow, I could see that. Yeah, because the wolves are often symbolic of like kind of trickster, playful, like they want to like be really direct and fierce and give all of the information, be really clear. I could see that. I could see how that would be a challenge in cultivating your own discernment with all that information.
Well, they never told me anything that wasn't right, and I can't say that for anything else or any other source.
Mm.
So they were always right on, but they would say, like if someone said that they didn't know if a relationship would work, the wolves would say something like, "Tell her he's using her for her money," which I knew that was true, but it probably wasn't the best way to say
Yeah, I love
it.
that.
I know,
Jeez.
I know, but it was like it would come in my mind so loudly that it was really hard not to say it.
Mm. Wow,
Yeah,
cool.
that was how that happened. There are many, many ways of awakening.
Yeah, for sure.
So you write a lot about presence in your book. Why don't you explain to our listeners what presence is to you?
It's funny to try to describe it. It's a feeling, it's a way of being at peace with yourself and with the world around you and being in, like the word acceptance too, right? Like you don't want to change anything. There's nothing to control. There's no thought. It's just being, observing, witnessing.
I think that for me, presence, and I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, I think for me, presence is when someone is really in contact with who they are, their inner self,
Mm.
because there's sort of an excitement about everything, and there's light and there's energy. There's quiet presence too, where you're calm and you're quiet and you don't say anything, but people can still feel you.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah. I love the game of trying to articulate these things.
Mhm.
It's fun.
Well, it's fun because it's what you said in your book. I mean, it was much easier for me to hear what wolves had to say intuitively than it was to even try to translate into language what was happening.
Yeah. We all have such different ways of translating feeling and intuition. And, I
Well, they
find,
said our language was screwed, that in the beginning, all the sounds were magical and they all meant things, and you could make the sound and everything would feel it and it would change things like instant manifestation.
yes, it's all spell casting and the light language. And our language, English especially, was intentionally, the power of it was dissipated because it was far too powerful for people to be able to manifest at that rate. So it's been the last couple of centuries that the language has really shifted. And you find when you work in, an energetic, intuitive healing and whatnot, the language really doesn't suffice to try to describe these like really higher dimensional experiences that we all have access to. The language really can lower the frequency if we try to contain it
Yeah,
sometimes.
some of the time it's easier with colors or sounds.
Yep, agree. Hmm.
But they didn't give me a clue as to when we were going to get our magic back. But they did say that really good things would happen around this time. They told me about it years before it did. And I can remember one day walking on the mountain and I could feel that the energy was different and it was moving around. And they said that's the beginning of all the things that are coming.
Mm,
That
beautiful.
almost the instability was associated with the changes that would come.
Yeah. Yeah, we're in a really powerful time for sure. It's really exciting and also challenging as the old falls away and we get to let go of old ideas and behaviors and identities and ways we've limited ourselves, from being fully powerful beings. And it's very vulnerable sometimes.
Oh, I do think it's really vulnerable. And I was going to ask you about that from your empath book. Why don't you give us some advice on feeling too much?
Advice. Well,
Or techniques or however you want to do it. Because I mean, I am an empath and it's like I'll do really well. And I know about the time I'm doing really well and things aren't bothering me, it means I'm going to grow and then it'll be a whole nother set of energy and things that do bother me that I pick up on.
or awaken you more. Yeah. Up
Yeah.
the spiral we go. Um, what feels most present to share? Let's see. I'm just tuning in a little bit. I'm just feeling into the people listening and what's most of service. Our whole world right now is really feels designed to almost like test us and with our ability to discern what is ours and what is not. And there's so many kind of like tripwires out there just in the way that media is presented and the social media, everything. And there's so much noise. We've never been inundated with this much data, not just in the media, but also energetic data, like in terms of information intelligence that we now have access to etherically on the planet. So there's so much, and it's all coming in to help us awaken and open our channels of receiving and also to cultivate our discernment. And so the greatest thing you can really do to support yourself if you feel highly empathic and really sensitive to planetary energetic currents and emotional experiences of other living beings, not just humans, but the animals, the plants, as you said, the planet itself. These are all energies we can feel. Then if the sensitivity is challenging, it is usually a sign that it's important to strengthen your own energetic body and to strengthen your energy field so that it is less unconsciously permeable to outside stimuli. And so, my favorite practice for building the energy field and enhancing stability is breath, and usually a combination of breath, movement, and sound. And that can really be anything, but I found very slow, passive breath tends to be the most potent tool for really regulating the nervous system, grounding into deeper presence. So, anything you can do to just practice that slow, intentional, little bit of like a constriction of the breath, especially on the exhale, and then playing with breath retention. So playing with staying very full and then staying empty for as long as you can.
Sure, I can do that. I've taken plenty of yoga lessons. I can do that. The other thing that did finally get me out of the last one was going behind the heart, to the secret space.
That's
That
great. Yeah,
finally worked. I was just like, I can't be like this anymore. I'll just sit here for an hour if I have to. And that's about how long it took.
totally. Yeah. And another one you're reminding me of, I love that behind the heart and working on the back body and kind of we're so front focused in our perception. So it's important to pay attention to the back and expanding the back of the energy field so that we can feel we can rest into the support of our own presence and our own field. Another great easy practice is just clearing out the field. So it sounds so simple to say, but it's a good reminder to connect to the earth, ground, connect to the earth star, which is a couple feet below the energy field. It plugs into the earth. Make sure that's really anchored into the earth and the earth's core. And then you can just command that anything in your energy field or connected to you that's really not useful right now, command that that be cleaned and cleared and released into the earth. And you can do that for just a couple minutes and really imagine the energy field clearing like a drain back into the earth and then filling any places and spaces left with light, with source, with divine presence, whatever it is you want to feel more of. And that's really helpful to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, I know all that, but it's always good to hear it again.
And my book, both my books have a lot of practices. So I think the ones I just mentioned are actually in I'm Ascending Now What, because I don't like to just share. It's fun to share stories and experience and all that, but I always love to give tangible practices because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, right? If you really want to shift your experience, there's going to be some practice and some work involved. And it
And
can,
that's another thing of heaven and earth is remembering your practices and doing your practices.
yeah.
I think that's where some light workers get confused. Just like, okay, I did this class or I did this exercise and I feel great. And it's 2 days later, why don't I feel good? I'm like, have you practiced? Yeah.
I like this term discipline. It comes from disciple. And what are you a disciple to? And if you're a disciple to peace or heaven on earth or power or being really your true self, there's a daily practice, just like you work out muscles at the gym. If you want to have a fit, strong body, right? We got to do the same thing with our spirit.
hmm And it is definitely a practice. So one of the things that interested me, and we've got enough time to talk about it, that is your idea about feminine and male energy. I thought that was interesting. You want to go into that with us? Good, bad, upper levels of it.
Sure. What's the specific question?
Well, you talked about the feminine as being creative, and you talked about the inner critic as being male, and then you went into a section where you talked about that there was a higher, more cultivated state.
Yeah. Some of what I wrote, I don't necessarily, I mean, it's such a different
Remember,
me that wrote that. Yeah, you, as a writer, you probably understand, like
I totally understand.
I had a directive to get that information out at a time before I went through a big update and change. And so I don't really identify,
No,
especially,
it's fine. Don't worry about it. I have plenty of other questions. That
well,
happens sometimes when I channel. I can't remember what in the heck I wrote.
exactly. Well, I can share this. What I believe in now is, we all have the capacity to really integrate all of the energy that we are uniquely, which can entail, masculine and feminine aspects. But I think at the end of the day, when we're really embodying our true selves, we're transcendent of gender. We'd have physical bodies that might have a gender identity, but our spirit or soul is not engendered. We are integrated. And I think more and more in the years to come, we'll see more, I think, androgynous, like physical beings, where we'll all be presenting more as androgynous as we integrate more of our masculine and feminine. But I speak about those dynamics in my book because it has been a helpful practice for many years to focus on those different aspects for healing, specifically around the mother and father wound, and really looking at the ways in which distorted masculine and distorted feminine energies have played a role in allowing certain trauma patterns to perpetuate.
Right. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the wounding and the trauma patterns? Because you write about a lot about that in your book, or would you rather go to a different topic? I have plenty of topics, no worries.
I don't feel like there's much more to say on that. If people are interested in learning, it's all there, and it just
Mhm.
doesn't feel as present for me to share about anymore.
Right. You wrote it, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll add something on that. In the study of alchemy, whether you're male or female, you're always trying to bring the two parts of the self together. And when you're in a pure state of love, it's like having a king and queen.
Mm,
And when they come together, they create a magical child, which I think is probably, that's just a guess, creating with the more magical or the more intuitive parts of the self.
mm.
Like one image has a king, a queen, they're on thrones, and they have a child standing between them, and they're putting a giant crown on the child because it's the integration of the two qualities.
I love that image so much, and that really, really resonates. I think that's actually kind of the update, and that's where I'm residing more now. We go through the different cycles in our healing journey and our embodiment process and our reclamation of our true self and healing the masculine, feminine wounds, mother, father wound. They're ways of getting in deeper connection to God and recultivating that, inner source. And I love that saying that's like, it's the whole point is to become like a child again, to be that divine child, to reclaim that inner, innocence, that wisdom, that divine being, and to hold that curiosity and wonder as children do.
Yeah, so they're saying in alchemy that we all have very many different states. Like one day we might be a victim, one day we might be angry, one day we might be clear and understand it. But when we can take those energies that are off and understand why and integrate them, then we're moving into being the king or the queen who eventually meets their other half and crowns the child.
Yeah, I wonder if you relate to this at all. I mean, I used to teach inner child healing retreats, 4-day retreats. This is a long time ago, and that was a big part of my work was helping heal the inner child because that was my story, coming from a background as an addict, alcoholic, all the stuff I went through to wake up, all the really intense shadow experiences, and had to go through a lot of reclamation. And so, inner child healing, I found, was one of the deepest ways to really access the true self and just cultivate like so much resource and then, yeah, it's just funny to reflect that was so long ago. And then now, it's probably 10 years later now, on my journey now up this spiral of ascension, I'm in another moment of really, you know, feels like returning to that same work again, but in a new lens with a new
Completely
willingness,
different way. Yeah.
humility, depth, a sense of like, oh my gosh, did I even know what I was doing before? And I did, and it served and it helped. But what I'm requiring now is an even deeper, it's like deeper repair is happening now. And so I'm working with my inner child, I'm working with my inner family, and I'm really in this stage right now of wanting to deepen my faith and trust in God and Source, who I'm trying to look at or feel as a loving parent. That's really working for me. And it's also bringing up a lot of, just deeper layers of worthiness and self love, these kinds of things.
Yeah, it helps a lot. I was going to say we should tell them that, part of ascension is that spiral, but you spiral back to wherever you left off periodically, but it's different. It's like awakening. Everything's the same, but it's all different.
Here we go again.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Mhm.
It's rewritten itself into a new form, but nevertheless, it's the concept that you worked with earlier.
Yep. And I think as we go, we get better at noticing that, like, oh, been here before. Okay, this is just a deeper layer. Let's go.
Oh no, or here I am in that pattern that I thought I was completely done with. Oh well, I'll try to get through it faster this time.
Yep.
So I think it's time for us to go to break. And I've been talking with Sydney Campos about ascension and her new book, I'm Ascending. Now what? We're talking about authenticity, presence, and working with emotion. And we'll be right back. So stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to The Power of Inspiration and Awakening on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm talking with Sydney Campos, and we're talking about ascension and creating heaven on earth. But before we move more deeply back into that, I wanted to ask her about her efforts to raise money for various ventures. She has a new social media template, and you've done other things too. You've got an AI thing going, so tell us about it.
Thanks for asking. Yeah, the social media template, the company was called Ascend, and we started it in 2020, and I actually closed it last year in October. And yeah, it was an incredible journey in trying to build a fifth dimensional social media platform. We were just talking about Facebook, and really there was always this message to build a new type of infrastructure where we can share in a more conscious way without so much interference from advertising and spam and things like this. And so,
Or having your post about billionaires giving away money taken down or said that they're
yeah,
incorrect on a regular basis.
a lot of that. Yeah. So we
Yeah,
we've done that for 3.5 years and built a relatively large community and had some great success. And then ultimately, it was really felt like going against the stream, So it
right.
was we templated something new and we put some important things out into the world. And then I think an important lesson for entrepreneurs and maybe you relate or people listening relate is, to know when to end,
Goodbye.
yeah, to not because we were speaking about energetic efficiency with that beautiful example of your friend and the supporting, that community effort and how you have infinite energy when what you're doing is really guided by source and just this greater mission to be of service. And we started the vision really with that energy. And then years later, it started to shift. And maybe, there was also a question of certain maybe a little bit of ego dynamic coming in and and kind of set me off on a healing journey from there actually, which led me into my current project, which is building an AI for leadership empowerment, and I'm building that in New York City. And it's been really fun working with the team again and just kind of playing in this realm of like infrastructural change. That's something that really excites me. Like I love working with people one-on-one and doing really deep healing work and hosting retreats and things, but I love visioning and actually building companies and technology that can really impact people at scale. That really excites me. And this is a fun way that we can work with spirit and work with our higher intuitive intelligence to bring through blueprints for these new types of structures.
And so, can I ask how will your structure work?
Well, it's an AI model that's trained with behavior science and cutting edge leadership development science, and also just really built with a lot of empathy in mind. And so we're at this critical juncture of, artificial intelligence, which I don't really love that term actually, right? It's artificial, and a lot of what we're repeating right now on the planet is we did this before in Atlantis, and we made
Right.
the decision back then to go the transhumanist route and really give our power away to the technology, and that ended the civilization. And so I don't think we're going to be repeating history again, but we're learning a lot of the same lessons again. And so my role in creating this new system is to really lead with an ethical and empathic approach that really puts the humans first and really prioritizes, our human intelligence and our human uniqueness and authenticity amidst, high technology it's here to support us to be better humans. It's not that the technology is something we outsource our power and our ability to be immortal or whatever it is. The AI and technology that's now developing is here to help us live more of our creative genius, live happier, more fulfilling lives where we're not working so much and we're not in survival as much.
Well, it sounds wonderful. Let me know as soon as it's available.
It is available. Yeah, we're starting to bring on board clients and customers and working with different companies, a lot of them based on the East Coast.
Mm.
And my vision really is for it to be a category defining technology that is as ubiquitous as, Slack or Teams or kind of these infrastructures that companies use to communicate and collaborate. And that the company is called Mattermore. And so you can look us up and follow us there. And I've been producing a lot of really cool events and building great partnerships in that ecosystem in New York, which has been a blast.
That's wonderful. And I'm going to skip to another subject. I talked about this a few weeks ago with Star Wolf, a lady who's up above Asheville. And we were saying how right now something is going on in the Appalachians. They're the oldest mountains in the United States, and something is happening on the East Coast. I can feel the energy changing so quickly right now.
Yes, New York especially is a big vortex. It's on a quartz crystal bed, so it's a huge broadcasting center of media and culture creation for the whole planet.
Hmm.
And for a lot of higher dimensional integration, people are integrating a lot of their multidimensional aspects and having very fast recall of other lifetimes and abilities. But yes, along that entire ley line, I'm also getting, there's an Atlantean crystal in New Orleans, just above where New Orleans is. So there's a big epicenter, kind of like a power generator stemming from there that runs through that ley line all the way up that mountain range. It's funny you mentioned that because we were talking about the Smoky Mountains nearby in one of our training calls last night, and just tuning into some of these vortexes around Asheville and yeah, all around North Carolina, and then just that whole
Yeah,
chain.
yeah, something is really going on. So I was thinking that when you were talking about how you were doing changes up and down the eastern seaboard,
Yeah,
I thought, oh, that fits in with the way the energy is moving right now.
yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting time, and we were seeing also last night. It was kind of bringing through some information about just the water, right, and the water element, and how there will be over the next year, it seems like just a lot of events, maybe climate events, working with the water to help purify, clear, cleanse, but also it's like this symbol of, people's inner emotional world and the water, clearing, cleansing, shifting, like trying to bring through physical awareness, sometimes through these scary events, but they're happening to
Yeah.
help access these deeper inner wells or well springs of resource and also reconnection to what actually matters.
And people don't know yet, or most people don't know yet, that our thoughts and our emotions can actually make it more polluted in the same way that they can clean it up. I do
Mhm.
know because I can hear them, but the whales and dolphins are pretty much like, you've got to do something. Here we are every day putting out good vibes, good sounds, and you're not doing anything to help us.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
looking
we
for
know the water has to change if they're complaining that much.
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing them. I'm out here in Big Island, Hawaii right now, and I'm getting ready to start a retreat soon that I'm hosting. And part of the preparation is to go to Maui next week and to see the whales and the dolphins, and then, connect with the dolphins here in Big Island as well, which is a huge gift.
I mean, I don't think that small boats matter, but they certainly don't want all the big boats out in the ocean anymore. They're done.
Yeah.
I
Mm,
don't know what we'll do about that, but I'm just saying they're done with it. Okay,
yeah.
so let's talk about right use of power because this is a good place to bring it in. What is
Yeah.
right use of power to you?
Acting with authenticity and integrity. So
Mhm.
really, like this whole conversation, it feels like is about that being a conduit for source and being a
Right.
conduit for something greater to move through you that is devoid of ego or transactionality or giving to get something, just being a pure vessel.
So I want to go a little deeper into that. I mean, now at least 10 years. Like, let's say, for example, if I see someone and I can tell they're suffering, I can see them in clothes and they'll usually end up with them in a few weeks. I'll see them again in the clothes, or I can see like a car that won't start. Someone's having trouble. Now, don't know enough about mechanics to really fix the car, but I can make it start. And so then they can get home, right? They're not stuck at wherever they are at the grocery store without a way to get home with small children. So I've learned though, even though I'd like to do it for everyone, I have to ask if I can do it or not. Is this okay for me to do this? And I get a yes or a no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like consent and, having that clear agreement feel that makes it easier, especially if you're doing any kind of healing work or supporting others. It's always a choice, and we have to honor empowerment and choice. That there's
And the
no,
universe, does it want to move its energy through me to do this? That's the other question. And the other reason I ask is because it's easy to say, oh, this is so cool. I can do this. I can help people. But that's really not how it works. You have to help the right people if you're using your power correctly.
yeah, I love that. Good reminder. Yeah, heard this quote recently. I love that was, the soul is made up of all it consents to, right? So this whole game here and this so-called physicality and reality here is all about what we've consented to experiencing. It's all about choice, free will, and then as healers and practitioners, we're always here to really honor what is the choice, what is the fully empowered, right use of our power, to
Right.
benefit the highest good.
Because something better could happen to them, perhaps, if I got a no and I didn't interfere. That's why
Yeah.
I ask. I don't know what their future is. I'm not going that far, but you know what I'm saying.
Mm. Yeah, good reminder.
Yeah, so I was just thinking that's an example that people don't usually think of. People tend to think of governments when we
Mm.
talk about right use of power, but a lot of it is about us.
Yeah, it's us. We're creating it all. We're allowing, if you want to go really into the rabbit hole, it's like, to what extent are we allowing, everything that's happening, right? How are we? This is pretty radical, but this is what I found in my own practice is just like, I'm complicit. If I see something in the world that I don't agree with, what part of me at some level, conscious or unconscious, is complicit in allowing that to happen? And then it's my responsibility, if I'm really not resonating or I'm disagreeing with something happening out there, no matter how big or how small, I have to clear that within myself. I have to accept that. I have to forgive that. I
Sure. And you have to work on it sometimes to get there. But I'm going to say the same thing in a way that I think everyone can relate to. When you're in traffic and you start to get irritated, notice that the more bothered you are by it, the more traffic it is, the more you're boxed in. If you start to breathe really deeply and you start to think about being in a calm, peaceful place, the traffic will often just clear out and go away.
That's a great
Maybe
way.
not New York City, but in most places.
That's a great way to look at it too. I love that.
So whatever it is that we're experiencing, there's some part of us that's not comfortable with it, I think.
Yeah, and it's happening to help us wake up more and get more in integrity with what we truly stand for, what we value, and clear out distortions within ourselves that aren't aligned.
Right. And then part of it too is remembering and forgetting. I know years ago I interviewed the chief of the Lakota Nation Golden Eagle, and I don't know what we were talking about, but he said, white people are just so stupid. He said they think they can go straight up a hill. He said all Native Americans know you go 2 steps forward, a step back, you may go to the left, you may go to the right, you may take another path. He said it's a dance.
Mm. I love that. I love dancing.
And that we're always forgetting that it's a dance.
Mhm. Yeah, different way of moving and also working within time and dropping our attachment to time, expectation to how we think things need to happen, and letting go of control.
Right. So let's see. I want to ask you next. Oh, why do you think manifesting is getting easier and easier now? I'm curious about that.
Energy is moving faster on the planet, and so that's giving us the opportunity to clear distortions within ourselves and within our fields faster and clearer if we're open to feeling, the things that come up to clean out. So we're
Right.
releasing density. So then we're becoming more clear and then we're becoming more magnetic. So our fields can resonate with a stronger, clearer signal to attract in what it is that is meant for us.
So it's the acceleration.
Yeah, I would say so. And also again, just this, I think we're maturing, and maybe it doesn't look like that, but it feels like that. Like we're given the opportunity to really heal, yeah, at a much more accelerated rate and then step into more maturity, of more, which is about being clear and in integrity. So we're not wasting so much energy managing all this backlog of personality and belief structures and ego. We can just be in more presence is a great tool for manifestation, right? That's when our
Right.
resources are flowing most efficiently.
So let's go a little further with this because it's kind of a joke on me. But most of
Yeah.
my life, I've had a really bad temper. And so if someone sends me an email or a phone message that I don't like, after a while, of course, I knew don't write back while you're like this. So my idea was, well, I'll send an email to myself and put everything in it. And I noticed 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, it's too much trouble to write the email. Just wait a couple days and see how you feel.
Yep.
Yeah,
Like good maturity.
right. But I mean, years ago, I would have, if I'd gotten the email, I would have said, why did you write that to me? I really don't like it. I don't understand what you're thinking, that kind of thing. And of course, I don't understand what they're thinking. We're two different people. I'm just reacting to my own feelings and my own thoughts when that kind of thing is happening.
I know we're such complex beings, and one of the greatest lessons I continually deepen in is to not take anything personally.
Yeah, but on another note, once someone wrote me an email that must have been like this long, and it was just complaining, complaining, complaining. And I thought she was telling me that she had hormonal problems and that was causing all of this. So I wrote her back and I said, I would definitely get your hormones checked because, it seems to be the root of all this. And then she wrote back and said, but I didn't say anything about hormones, but you're right. I went to the doctor and that was the problem. And I thought that was hilarious, because I was reading it psychically, but I didn't know what the words said.
Oh, that's funny.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It can get a little mixed up when you're really intuitive. But okay, so let's go into this part. I'm going to think that when you said it's easier now to manifest your heart's desires than it ever was, you're still referring to the fluctuations of the magnetic field, the solar storms, and all the light, and just this time in particular.
Yeah, I think there's also with that an expansion in our creative capacity and our ability to really vision what we want for ourselves, what we believe, what we can feel into might be possible, right? We can have more expansive vision.
So there's more possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's true. And another thing that you said that I really liked was that creativity was essentially infinite.
Mm.
You want to tell us some more about that?
What comes up is we're creative beings. We're here to create. We're all artists. I feel like we're all artists. We're all here to create beauty.
Hmm.
That's the point, beyond all the survival and working and proving ourselves or whatever. Like what are we each here to give as a gift? And there's infinite capacity when we're in that expression of our true self, which is here to give a really unique, beautiful gift that is usually meant to heal, inspire, expand, almost always.
Arrange flowers or grow flowers, things like that. Yeah.
It is, and we're all artists here to give a gift, and maybe our life is really about discovering, what is that unique gift each of us has.
Hmm. Well, it's always the light, but I think it expresses itself in different ways in different people.
Mm.
Or just the light becomes profound enough so they don't care anymore. It's just enough to be who they are and being what they are.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, so talk just a little bit about being multidimensional.
Well, fair to say. I mean, we're all multidimensional beings, so we all are, especially now, integrating different aspects of ourselves now faster than I've ever seen. I mean, it occurs for me as, the awareness of other lifetimes and just recall of abilities, capacities, just, integrating, embodying, and then in a lot of my work with clients, I'm helping people kind of integrate complex memories or complex senses of their identity shifting in certain ways, and might also simultaneously come with deep healing or like kind of spiritual crises where there's like a very deep, grieving that needs to happen or release of anger that needs to happen in order for this higher frequency aspect to fully be able to land in the body in this like different resonance. So, we're all multidimensional beings. We all are like huge, complex, universes of experience and wisdom, and we're all channels of source. And it's a fun way to try to relate to each other that way, to really have compassion and to see, wow, everyone is going through such a unique multidimensional awakening at this time, whether they know it or not. And those of us that have cultivated more resource to kind of understand a little bit more what's going on, we, I think, have a responsibility to be really loving and also to have healthy, clear boundaries, right? As an example of what that's
Right.
like, but to be really compassionate and to be really kind. Like it's like little babies learning how to walk all around.
hmm And I think too, I should add for people who are interested in it, people will say, how can you prove that people had past lives? And I said, I can't, but I can look at your memories, and everybody has holographic memories of past lives. And I can share a few of those main events with you. And they're like, oh God, it just felt so real for a minute. Thinking, well, I don't know if you believe now or not, but it gave you the feeling of yourself.
When you start to, just open up to more feeling and presence and just feeling yourself being in your body, I think multidimensionality and awareness of different timelines is really natural, and it just comes about very natural. It's the mind that will ask, is this real? Or, usually if someone's really orienting in a very limited mental analytical,
Yeah.
they're not in the body. That's when that question
Oh
comes up.
no, I can't get their memories anyway. I don't want them. But I'm just saying for people who are evolving, it's interesting to me. And I do think we integrate all that into ourselves. I think for women, I've often wondered if this is like an implant for the planet or if we were just all there. But so many women, when they start to come into their power, are afraid that something's going to happen to them or they're going to die or they're going to get hurt for becoming spiritual. And I can't decide if that's a layer or if it comes from the time, in medieval Europe when all the women were being killed, if they had any gifts at all.
Yeah, it's the witch wound. It's not just from this planet. That's happened in other iterations of this Earth planet as well, and there's sometimes imprints from other interplanetary wars that have happened that some of us have had parts in, but we're all collectively healing this now. It's a massive trauma imprint
hmm
um, that we all are connected to by nature of having DNA and hybrid DNA, human DNA, and so we have
Right.
this resonance field that we're cleaning and clearing out as we start to come into touch with our true power. There can be fear and really allowing that to come out or to be seen, to like step into our role as a healer or facilitator. It can be scary. There can be a subconscious fear that people are going to persecute you. And
Mhm.
so it all comes back to, really loving yourself and also having support from trusted people that can help you repair these wounds.
And knowing that just because you feel that way doesn't make it true. There are things that sometimes emotions are very true and they're telling us or feelings or they're telling us things that are important and protect us. But I mean, what about wolves? I was terrified of them. What if I'd listened to my fear?
Oh, okay, you're speaking to something really cool. So feel the fear and do it anyway, right? It's like this is how we repattern, and being in power is an intellectual process. It's an embodiment. It's usually an action. It usually comes with answering a creative call. And I think, there's so many sayings that come to mind, but I'm just feeling this like reminder that the bigger your dream that you have and the bigger your calling to be of service, like there's going to be fear. There's going to be like imposter syndrome, probably. There's going to be, all kinds of resistance that maybe on some level you designed to work through, to move through, to grow through, to learn from so that you
Yeah,
can better understand who you are.
yeah, I'm sure, because I've always loved animals. I grew up in the middle of nowhere and had animal pets everywhere and spent my time in the woods. They were the safe beings in my life.
Mm.
And since the wolves never told me anything that wasn't true, that seems to make them even safer. Let's say that.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Oh, and I wanted to ask you, and we all have this, how sometimes as you're becoming more intuitive or a part of you has just come back that you thought you lost, it makes it more difficult to know if you're right or wrong with intuition. What's a technique that you use with that?
Huh. Can you say that again just so I
Sure.
understand?
All right, so let's say that I've changed and I'm beginning to develop myself, particularly in an area that I'd shut down for a long time, right? So when I start getting intuitions about that, sometimes it's hard to know, is this
Mm.
a part of me that believes this? Is this true, like my true self? Or am I doing this because I'm afraid?
Oh, got it. Yeah. It's like ego versus soul or the
Hmm. Yeah.
intuition. Yeah, and this can happen even after you've done a lot of intuitive work. Sometimes there can be dimensional shifts within your awareness where it's like another up level is requiring greater discernment and clarity. One of my favorite practices I teach in my intuitive training program is just this is something anybody can do that wants to cultivate more intuitive ability and also just trust in that intuitive sense is intuitive journaling. So, like,
Uh-huh.
if you have a question, any question at all, what are my past lives? You can write that at the top of a journal and then just, intuitively write what's the answer? What do you feel? And then you can ask the same question upon kind of dropping into a more, call it like a channeling space or just a more receptive, like meditative space out of the mind and really, center in your body, center in your breath, connect to the earth, call in your guides, ancestors,
And
beings.
keep asking until it's clear too, I think.
Ask the same question
Hmm.
and notice how information will come in differently, maybe through color, through sound,
Right.
through a dream message later. And this is a way that you can start to just see different ways in which your intuition also speaks to you and different
Right.
layers of insight that you have access to.
Yeah, it's always interesting. So we're getting to the end, and I know you have a workshop that's coming up that you wanted to tell us about.
Thank you. Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm hosting a 10-day transformational retreat here in Big Island called the Somatic Sanctuary. And it's all about accessing our ancient Lemurian wisdom and also really doing deep multidimensional healing and beautiful journeys to sacred sites. And I'm so grateful. So that's starting in 3 weeks.
In 3 weeks, and I'm assuming they can go to your website to find out about it.
You can learn about it on my website, also Instagram, and then the retreat has its own website called Soul. It's Soulmatic, kind of a play on somatic, like embodiment, sanctuary.com.
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you for being with us. So, everyone, you can go to my website, onetrueself.com, and sign up for my newsletter or get in touch with me, and I always love to hear from you. So, thank you so much for listening and being with us, and namaste.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.